Chris, thank you for your time. It was all so mouth-wateringly poised going into this final day after what was a sensational day for England. But it ended in a bit of a damn squib this morning, didn't it?
Yeah, you summed it up very well. It was very anticlimactic. It looked as though, for me, England had that motivation that I heard Jimmy Anderson do an interview and he was talking about how there wasn't too many test matches where a side had declared their first innings closed and then were in a position where they could lose that test match. And it looked to me as though England put themselves in a position, although they were going to be chasing down not necessarily a world record score, but certainly a very high score in that second innings. It looked as though that was the motivation they needed. 4 for 176 with Joe Root at the crease looking good. But then obviously very early on this morning, our time, afternoon our time, things came to an end very, very quickly. And so you have to take your hat off to Australia. And yeah, just really disappointed because, as you said, it looked as though it was going to be close. But we needed a good partnership from Root and Wokes this afternoon, and that wasn't to be. It was ended very, very quickly.
Chris, Mitchell-Starc's fifer is what yells out when you look at that scorecard. But the damage really was done by Josh Hazlewood right at the start of the day. England's hopes, as indeed the fate of this game, perhaps rested on Joe Root. And when he was dismissed in the third over, it was curtains for the visitors.
Yeah, you summed it up nicely. Mitchell-Starc was obviously the key when you look at the results at the end of the game with those 5 wickets in that second innings. But for me, Josh Hazlewood picking up those 2 wickets early on in that session today was the absolute key. He got Wokes, which they obviously were desperate to get an early breakthrough, and then the massive wicket very shortly after of Joe Root, the captain. And that, to me, pretty much, I think, for any cricket public lover of the game watching, that was the end for England, and we saw after that it came pretty early. So we knew Root had to get 100 and we needed Wokes and Root to form a bit of a partnership. But yeah, Hazlewood broke the back of England with those 2 early wickets this morning, bowled beautifully. And then we know how dangerous Mitchell-Starc is, and especially to tail-enders, and he wrapped it up pretty quickly.
Well, hindsight, Chris, is the greatest gift for all of us sitting outside the playing field. For the first 2 days, Root was criticised from almost all quarters for opting to bowl first. Through day 4 and perhaps before day 5, the question marks were saved for Stephen Smith and his decision to not enforce a follow-on. In the end, would you say that the call which appeared to be more incorrect was the one which ended up on the losing side?
Well, it's really hard to criticise the captain too much. I know we can criticise through the game, but at the end of the day, Steve Smith got the result that he wanted. So he'll have to, he's got a very strong argument to say, look, you can say what you like, but we won the test match. We won this game. So, as far as I'm concerned, what I did was right. From Joe Root's point of view, hindsight, again, a wonderful thing. I think he'll certainly look back. Possibly missed opportunities from England, but I think if he had his time again and that call went up again, I'm sure he would have elected to bat first.
Well, we said at the start of the game that it could be a telling one as far as the fate of the WION is concerned. 2-0 down away from home, collapses in all 4 innings so far. Far from a keen contest. Chris, does this already have the makings of a long ordeal for the English side? Yeah, this test match particularly was a massive one for the English. I mean, it was big for Australia as well, because they had the ability to get the ascendancy, I guess, in this series and make it very difficult for England to come back, which they did. And that's why I thought this was one test where England just had to throw all caution to the wind. They had to win this test match, or at worst case scenario, draw it, because if they lost, as you rightly said, they're 2-0 down. It's very, very difficult to come from 1-0 down, let alone 2-0 down. So it's a very big uphill battle for England. Watching from afar, you wonder where the improvement's going to come from, because they need to improve to, let alone win the games or win what's left, just to compete. So, I wonder where that's going to come from. And from Australia, I guess just another nail in the English coffin. It's looking very much like an Australian Ashes series, this one. So, yeah, a very, very tough uphill climb for England to bounce back from, I guess, another crushing defeat, really. And you've led us into the look-ahead zone with that. Yes, cricket is a game of glorious uncertainties. Yes, miracles do happen in sport. But realistically speaking, would it be safe to say that this series is all but over now? Yeah, but that's what I'm certainly thinking. I picked 2-1 to Australia at the start of the series. I think that's an unlikely result. There may be some rain affected, so you might argue that one might get drawn. But to me, I guess there's some hope that England might pull something out and perhaps win one test match. But I think it's looking, best case scenario for me, it's looking like it's going to be an Australian series, possibly 3-1. That would be my prediction at this stage. I think England might win one, and there might be one affected by rain. But yeah, it's I can't see England winning this Ashes now.